Keanu Reeves sat by the window, staring at the tarmac lights flickering through the soft rain. It was late, almost midnight, but the flight from Los Angeles to New York was full. Families, tired business people, and a few college kids filled the cabin with a low, restless hum. Keanu pulled his old leather bag closer, his hand brushing over the small bottle inside. He never flew without his special medicine. It wasn't just for pain. It was for the memories he carried in his bones, old injuries from stunts gone wrong, and a constant reminder that sometimes the body holds on to hurt long after the heart has let go. The flight attendant, a young woman with a forced smile and hurried steps, noticed him holding the bottle. She tilted her head. "Sir, what's that?" Keanu looked up gently. His eyes were kind, but the shadows beneath them told stories of sleepless nights. "It's my medicine. I need it. It's prescribed." The attendant's smile stiffened. "Sir, you're not allowed to have unmarked liquid containers on board." Keanu stayed calm. "It's labeled. Look." He turned the bottle so she could see the faded sticker. His doctor's name, the dosage, everything was there, but the label was old. Some letters had smudged over time. She didn't even lean closer. "I'm sorry, sir. I'll have to take it. Rules are rules." He felt a spark of worry in his chest. The pain would come back if he didn't have that small dose every few hours. He'd learned to live with discomfort. He had survived worse, but he knew tonight would be hard. Still, he nodded. "Please, just be careful." She grabbed the bottle like it was poison, dropped it into a plastic bag, and marched off. Down the aisle, Keanu sighed, leaning back against the cold window. He watched raindrops race each other, like tiny rivers trying to reach the bottom before they disappeared into the dark. He thought of the shoot that had gone wrong years ago, the motorcycle crash that had left his leg with hairline fractures that never fully healed. The doctors told him there'd be good days and bad days. Most days, he walked like nothing hurt, but tonight, he felt it in every bone, every joint. He closed his eyes and tried to focus on his breathing. A small girl across the aisle stared at him. She wore a pink hoodie and held a stuffed bunny by the ear. She whispered to her mother, "Mommy, is that John Wick?" The mother shushed her, embarrassed, but Keanu gave the girl a soft smile. He waved at the bunny, and the girl giggled. For a moment, he forgot the pain, the medicine, the cold. The intercom crackled. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain speaking. We're preparing for takeoff." Double quotes Keanu's single quotes S mind raced. He knew he had about an hour before the pain would turn from a dull throb to sharp, biting flames. He signaled the flight attendant as she passed by again. "Excuse me, could I please have my medicine back? I promise it's safe. You can check with the captain." She frowned, annoyed. "Sir, I told you. It's not allowed. I understand, but, sir, if you don't calm down, I'll have to report you." Her words stung, not because they were cruel, but because they were empty. They sounded like they were memorized, repeated 1,000 times to passengers she never really saw. He let her walk away. An old man in the row behind leaned forward. "Don't let her push you around. Son, if you need it, you need it." Keanu smiled sadly. "Thank you, sir. I'll be all right." But he wasn't sure. 30 minutes into the flight, the cabin lights dimmed and the world outside turned to ink. The engines hummed like a restless heartbeat. The pain started as a pulse behind his knee, then spread up his thigh, wrapping around his hip like a vice. He shifted in his seat, trying not to wince. He pressed his forehead to the window, the cool glass grounding him. The little girl's mother noticed. She reached over, her eyes soft with concern. "Are you okay? Do you need help?" Keanu's voice was calm but thin. "It's just an old injury. They took my medicine." The mother shook her head. "That's not right." The pain surged like fire. Keanu bit down on the inside of his cheek to stop a groan. Sweat dotted his hairline. The engine's steady rhythm became an echo, a reminder that he was trapped 30,000 feet above the earth with no escape, no relief. He pressed the call button. The same flight attendant came, her smile now gone, replaced with irritation. "Sir, what is it now?" Keanu met her eyes. There was no anger in his, only quiet strength. "I need you to bring my medicine back. I'm not asking for a favor. I'm telling you, I need it." She scoffed. "Sir, sit back and relax." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten. He just said, "Then you leave me no choice." The woman frowned. "Excuse me." Keanu leaned back, pain making his breath shallow, but his words were clear. I'm grounding this flight. She laughed, but her voice cracked. You can't do that. Keanu looked past her, his eyes landing on the crew-only door. He'd been flying for decades, knew the safety rules better than most passengers ever would. He unbuckled his seatbelt, pushing himself up with shaky legs. The mother gasped. The old man behind him cursed under his breath. The flight attendant grabbed his arm. Sir, sit down. But Keanu stood tall, his shoulders steady even though. Pain shot through every inch of him. The passengers began to whisper. Phones lifted to record. Some thought they were about to witness a meltdown. They had no idea they were about to see a man fight, not for himself, but for the simple right to be treated like a human being. Keanu raised his voice just enough for nearby passengers to hear. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the disturbance. I'm in severe pain because this airline threw out my necessary medicine. They refused to check with my doctor. They refused to listen. I'm in no condition to fly safely. The flight attendant hissed. Sit down now. Keanu looked at her, his voice like ice. Then get your captain here, now. The hum of the engine seemed to quiet as people realized this wasn't just a celebrity asking for special treatment. This was a man, broken but unbending, asking for dignity. He clutched the back of his seat for balance as the pain flared again. The mother held her daughter close. The old man crossed his arms, nodding in support. Whispers turned to mutters, mutters to questions. The flight crew exchanged nervous glances. They had a decision to make. Treat him like a problem to be silenced, or like a person who deserved to be heard. The captain's voice finally broke through the intercom. Mr. Reeves, I understand there's a problem. Keanu didn't sit. He faced forward, eyes steady. Yes, Captain. Either you give me my medicine back, or you land this plane. Because I'm not putting these people at risk by passing out or going into shock. The flight attendant's face went pale. She hadn't expected him to stand up, to speak up, not like this. Not the man who was known for his quiet kindness. As the plane flew through the stormy sky, one thing became clear. Sometimes it takes one calm, determined voice to stop the world from moving forward until what's right is done. And in that moment, Keanu Reeves showed them all that respect is not something you earn by shouting, but by standing your ground when it matters most. Asterisk, the captain's voice on the intercom crackled through the tension in the cabin. Mr. Reeves, please return to your seat. I'll come out and speak with you. Keanu lowered himself back into his seat, his legs trembling from the pain. The flight attendant shot him an angry look as she hurried toward the cockpit. The passengers watched in uneasy silence. Some people were annoyed at the delay, but others whispered words of support. They could see that this wasn't about celebrity drama. It was about a man asking for the simple respect of being heard. The mother across the aisle leaned over. Do you want water? Something cold for your leg? Keanu forced a small smile. Thank you. Water would be good. The little girl handed him her half-empty juice box instead. Here, Bunny says it makes pain go away. Keanu chuckled softly. Bunny is very wise. The minutes crawled by as the engines hummed. Each vibration seemed to echo inside his bones. The pain stabbed at his hip, climbed up his back like tiny knives. He closed his eyes, remembering the accident again, the screech of metal, the jolt that knocked him off his bike. Doctors had told him he was lucky to keep his leg, but on nights like this, he wondered how lucky it really was. When he opened his eyes, the captain stood in the aisle. He was a tall man with tired eyes and gray hair tucked neatly under his cap. He didn't look like someone who enjoyed conflicts. He knelt beside Keanu's seat so they could speak eye to eye. Mr. Reeves, I'm sorry you're in pain. Tell me what happened. Keanu spoke slowly, trying to keep his voice even. I have prescribed medicine for my chronic pain. Your attendant took it away, saying the label wasn't clear enough. I offered to show proof. She refused. Now I'm sitting here knowing I might pass out or worse. The captain glanced at the flight attendant hovering behind him. Her arms were crossed tight, her mouth a thin line. Where's the medicine now? He asked. In the trash, she muttered. Keanu single quotes S jaw tightened. The captain's eyes flickered with frustration. Did you verify with security or medical staff before disposing of it, sir? I followed protocol, she snapped. No one marked containers. It was marked. Keanu interrupted, his voice like gravel. She didn't care. The captain took a deep breath, the weight of the situation pressing on his shoulders. Mr. Reeves, I'm sorry. I can't allow you to remain on this flight. If you're at risk, we'll have to return to Los Angeles." The passengers erupted into a chorus of groans, protests, and questions. The mother across the aisle raised her hand. "Are you kidding? He told you he needed it?" The old man behind Keanu spoke up. "Let him have what he needs. Don't turn us around for nothing." The captain stood. "Please, everyone, remain calm. This is about safety." The flight attendant leaned down to Keanu's ear. Her words, dripping with blame. "You think you're so special. You just want attention." Keanu didn't flinch. He looked her in the eyes, and for a moment, the kindness that usually lived there was replaced with something sharper. Disappointment. "No, I want respect. For me, for everyone here. You treated me like I was lying." She opened her mouth but had nothing to say. The captain turned to her, voice low but firm. "You and I will talk when we land." She glared at Keanu one last time and stormed down the aisle. The captain put a hand on Keanu's shoulder. "We'll get you help when we land, Mr. Reeves." Keanu exhaled slowly. The decision was made. The plane banked left, turning back toward the city lights far below. He hated inconveniencing people, but he knew deep down he couldn't stay on that flight with his body failing him. The mother touched his arm. "You did the right thing. You're not alone." He nodded. "Thank you." The little girl with the bunny leaned over. "Mr. Johnwick, are you gonna be okay?" Keanu managed a real smile this time, even as the pain dug deep. "Yeah, because of people like you." 30 minutes later, the plane touched down, the wheels screeching against the wet runway. The moment they stopped at the gate, paramedics were already waiting. The captain stayed by Keanu's side, helping him stand. "We'll make sure you get checked out properly," the captain said. Keanu winced as he put weight on his bad leg. "I appreciate that." The other passengers waited, some giving him nods of respect. The old man saluted him like a soldier. The mother squeezed his hand. "Don't let them make you feel guilty. You did what you had to do." He looked at her and the little girl and felt something warm break through the cold pain. A reminder that there were still good people, even in the middle of the sky. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the tarmac was still slick and shining under the airport lights as they wheeled him toward the waiting ambulance. Keanu stared up at the plane, the metal bird that would not fly tonight because one man decided his dignity was worth more than. Silence. And in that quiet moment, KeanuReeves promised himself that this was not the end of it. He would make sure what happened tonight would change how people are treated, not just celebrities, but everyone who feels small and voiceless when the rules become more important than the person. He clenched his fists, the pain fading behind a new fire inside him. This was not about revenge. It was about respect, and he would make sure the world heard that message loud and clear. Keanu lay in a narrow hospital bed, staring at the speckled ceiling tiles. The soft beeps of a monitor next to him felt like a heartbeat trying to keep him steady. He had been awake for hours, drifting in and out of shallow sleep as the pain medicine the doctor gave him slowly untangled the knots in his leg and back. His body felt heavy, but his mind was clear. News about what happened on the flight had already leaked out. He could hear it on the TV mounted on the far wall. A local reporter stood outside the airport, her voice full of fake excitement. Sources say the flight was forced to return after a passenger, reportedly actor Keanu Reeves, refused to comply with crew instructions, but some passengers are defending him, claiming he was denied necessary medication. He turned away from the screen, closing his eyes. He didn't want the headlines. He didn't want to be a story. He just wanted to be seen as a man who asked for basic kindness. Was that too much? A soft knock on the door pulled him back. The door opened, and the mother from the flight stepped inside, holding her daughter's hand. The little girl carried her stuffed bunny close to her chest. Seeing them made Keanu's heart warm in a way that the hospital blanket never could. "We heard you were still here," the mother said gently. "We wanted to check on you." Keanu smiled, his voice rough. From hours of silence, "You didn't have to come all the way." The mother shook her head. "Yes, we did. You didn't deserve what happened. You stood up for yourself. You stood up for everyone." The little girl climbed onto the chair next to his bed. "Bunny says you're brave." Keanu chuckled softly. "Bunny is very wise." The mother reached into her purse and handed him a folded note. "Some of the passengers signed this. It's just a small thing, but we thought maybe you could use it if the airline tries to blame you." Keanu opened the paper with careful fingers. Inside, scrawled in different hands, were words like he did nothing wrong. He was calm and respectful. He was in pain, and they ignored him. It was a patchwork of voices that made him feel like maybe, just maybe, his stand had not been in vain. Thank you, he whispered. The mother squeezed his arm. Promise me you'll talk to someone about this. They shouldn't get away with treating you like that. Or anyone. Keanu looked at her, the words settling deep in his chest. I will. They stayed for a few minutes, talking about small things. The little girl asked if his legs still hurt. He told her the truth, that it did, but it would get better, and he thanked her for Bunny's blessing. When they left, the room felt emptier, but brighter somehow. He unfolded the note again, reading each scribbled line. It was strange, how a few words from strangers could remind him that no one truly stands alone. The next day, Keanu checked himself out of the hospital, even though the doctors wanted him to stay another night. He walked slowly, leaning on his cane. His driver waited outside to take him home. But as they pulled out of the hospital driveway, Keanu's mind wasn't on rest. It was on what needed to be done next. Back in his house, a quiet place with books stacked in corners and old guitars leaning against walls. He sank into a chair by the window. He picked up his phone and scrolled through the endless messages, friends, journalists, fans, all wanting his side of the story. He opened a message from his lawyer, a good man who had known him for years. Keanu, if you want to file a complaint, I'll help you. You have every right. He typed back, yes, but not just for me, for everyone. And in that moment, Keanu made a promise to himself. He wouldn't let it end with a headline in a pity piece on the news. He would push for real change. He would speak for those who didn't have his fame, his voice, his reach. The next morning, he dressed in simple clothes, jeans, a soft sweater, his old boots. He took his medicine, now safely in his pocket, and headed for the car waiting. Outside, the driver asked, "Where to, sir?" Keanu looked out the window, eyes sharp with quiet resolve. To the airline's main office. The ride across town was long. The city rolled by in a blur of traffic lights and gray buildings. He thought about the people on that flight. The mother, the little girl, the old man with the kind eyes. He thought about the flight attendant, too, and wondered what had made her so quick to judge, so unwilling to listen. When they reached the airline's headquarters, he stepped out slowly, wincing as his leg reminded him of last night's fire. Inside the sleek glass building, people turned their heads, whispering when they saw him. He didn't care. He walked straight to the reception desk. "Can I help you, sir?" the woman asked, her eyes wide when she recognized him. "Yes," Keanu said softly. "I need to speak with whoever's in charge of passenger care and safety. Now." The woman stammered, "Do you have an appointment?" He smiled gently but firmly. "No, but trust me, they'll want to hear what I have to say." As he waited in the polished lobby, Keanu Reeves sat not as a celebrity, but as a man with a simple demand that respect should never be thrown away as easily as a bottle of medicine. And deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. Keanu sat in the waiting room of the airline's headquarters, the polished floor cold under his boots. He could feel the eyes of people passing by. Some whispered, some just stared. He ignored them all, focusing instead on the slow, steady beat of his heart and the dull ache that still lingered in his leg. He wasn't here for an apology. He was here for something bigger. After almost 30 minutes, a door opened and a woman in a crisp gray suit stepped out. She looked surprised to see him sitting so calmly, like he was just another passenger waiting for his lost luggage. "Mr. Reeves," she said, her voice trying to sound warm. "Please come with me." Keanu rose from his chair, leaning on his cane. She led him through a maze of glass walls and quiet halls, deeper into the belly of the building. Finally, they entered a conference room, long table, leather chairs, a wall of screens that showed flight schedules and weather maps. 3 executives waited inside. They stood up quickly, each forcing a polite smile. "Mr. Reeves, we're very sorry about what happened," said the man in the middle, his hair slicked back and his suit expensive. "Please, sit." Keanu lowered himself into the chair across from them. He folded his hands on the table. His eyes were tired, but sharp. "I don't want your apologies. I want to know what you're going to do about it." The woman in gray cleared her throat. "Mr. Reeves, we deeply regret how you were treated by our cabin crew. The flight attendant in question will be dealt with." Keanu shook his head slowly. This isn't about punishing her. I don't want her fired. They exchanged glances. The man in the expensive suit frowned. Then what do you want, sir? Keanu leaned forward, his voice steady but strong. I want you to train your staff better. Teach them to see people, not just rules. I want you to create a clear policy for passengers with medical needs, so no one's medicine is thrown away. Because someone didn't bother to listen, the room fell silent. One of the executives started to speak, but stopped when Keanu's eyes met his. You think I'm asking for too much? Keanu asked. I'm not. You fly thousands of people every day, some old, some sick. Some are scared to speak up when someone in a uniform says no. You have power over people when they're at their weakest. You can't just follow rules. You have to have respect. The man in the suit crossed his arms. Mr. Reeves, while we understand your concern, you must see that our crew has to make quick decisions. Keanu cut him off, but his tone was still calm. Quick decisions shouldn't cost someone their health or their dignity. The woman in gray spoke again. We will review our policies. Keanu nodded. Good, I'll be watching. The three executives shifted in their seats. They had expected him to be angry, maybe do shout. They hadn't expected quiet, relentless insistence. He wasn't here to shame them for headlines. He was here to hold them accountable. Also, Keanu added, pulling out the folded note from his jacket pocket. These are statements from passengers on that flight. Read them. These people deserve to be heard. He slid the paper across the table. They took it, eyes flicking over the scrawled messages. He was calm. They ignored him. We support him. The executives looked smaller with each line they read. I'm going to speak publicly about this, Keanu said, not to embarrass you, but to make sure people know they don't have to stay silent. You can join me in making this right, or you can sit here and hope it goes away. The man in the suit cleared his throat. We'll issue a statement. We'll reach out to you. Keanu stood, his cane steady under his hand. I hope you do, but don't expect me to disappear. He walked out of the room with the woman in gray following behind him. At the lobby, she paused. Mr. Reeves, she said softly, her eyes searching his face. Thank you for not trying to ruin us. Keanu turned, his expression gentle but unyielding. You ruin yourselves when you forget respect. Don't let it happen again. Outside, the city air felt cooler, the sky painted with soft evening light. Keanu stood for a moment on the sidewalk, letting the breeze wash over him. People walked by, some noticing him, some too busy with their own troubles. He liked it that way. Just a man among people. His phone buzzed in his pocket. It was a message from the old man who had sat behind him on the flight. Saw you on the news. You did the right thing, son. Proud of you. Keanu smiled, a warmth settling in his chest that no medicine could ever give him. He typed back a simple thank you. When he got home that night, he didn't turn on the TV. He sat by the window with a cup of tea, looking out at the city lights blinking like distant stars. He thought about how easy it was for people to feel small in a world that moved too fast. He knew he couldn't fix everything, but maybe, just maybe, he had reminded a few people that it was okay to speak up. His legs still ached. The pain would never truly leave him, but neither would the quiet fire inside him. He knew this wasn't over. There would be more calls, more reporters, maybe even angry voices calling him dramatic. He didn't care. Some fights were worth the pain. And as he closed his eyes, Keanu Reeves promised himself this was still only the beginning. Days passed, but the story didn't fade away. The video clips from passengers on the flight, the shaky footage of Keanu standing tall in the aisle, the quiet strength in his voice, spread across social media like wildfire. Some people cheered him on for standing up to a big airline. Others argued he was just a celebrity, making noise. But behind the noise, something deeper was happening. Keanu sat at his kitchen table, the same table where he had read movie scripts and letters from fans over the years. Now it was covered in papers, statements from passengers, letters from people he didn't even know. Some told him their own travel nightmares. Some thanked him for being brave enough to say what they were too afraid to say. All of them reminded him that respect wasn't a luxury, it was a right. His lawyer sat across from him, tapping a pen on the table. The airline offered you a private settlement, first-class vouchers for life, a public apology, a charity donation in your name. They want this to go away quietly. Keanu leaned back, staring out the window. The city skyline looked calm, but he felt the weight pressing on his chest. They don't get it. He said softly, this was never about me getting free flights. His lawyer sighed. I know, but you've got to be careful. Going public means they'll come after you, too. They might say you were difficult, uncooperative. Keanu gave a small, tired smile. Let them talk. The truth is on my side. The lawyer looked at him, eyebrows raised. So what's the plan? Keanu tapped the stack of letters. The plan is to make this bigger than me. I want to set up something, a fund, maybe, to help regular people fight back when they're mistreated by companies too big to care. I'll pay for the lawyers if they can't. I'll stand with them. The lawyer sat back, genuinely surprised. You really want to fight them head on? Not fight them, Keanu said, his voice calm but steady. Change them. The next day, Keanu walked into a local community center where he had asked a few reporters to meet him. The building was old, the walls lined with flyers for free meals and job fairs. He chose this place on purpose. It wasn't about fancy microphones or dramatic speeches. It was about being real. When he stepped in, people turned and whispered. Some pulled out their phones, but he didn't mind. He found the mother and little girl from the flight sitting near the front. They smiled when they saw him, and the girl lifted Bunny into the air like a tiny hero. Keanu's heart warmed at the sight. He stood in front of the small crowd, taking a breath. Thank you for coming, he began. His voice was low but clear. You all know what happened on that flight. But this isn't about me. This is about respect. It's about people not feeling helpless when they're told their voices don't matter. He paused, looking around at the faces watching him. I'm not here to ruin an airline. I'm here to remind them, and every company like them, that people come first. Your roles mean nothing if you forget the humans standing in front of you. Someone in the back asked, what do you want us to do? Keanu lifted the stack of letters he brought. Share your stories. Don't be quiet. Don't think you're too small to matter. I'm starting a fund to help people who can't afford lawyers when they're mistreated. And I'm going to push for better training. For airline staff everywhere, not just for me, but for the next person who gets ignored. The mother from the flight stood up, her voice trembling but strong. You're not doing this alone. We're with you. A wave of quiet agreement filled the room. People nodded. Some clapped softly. Even the reporters looked moved, their cameras now capturing something real, not just a scandal, but a moment that felt like a spark of something bigger. Afterward, the little girl tugged at his sleeve. Did Bunny help you be brave? Keanu knelt down so they were face to face. Bunny helped a lot, he said with a soft smile. And so did you. That night, the clips of his small speech spread across the world. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't dramatic, but it felt true. People watched him stand in that plain community center, speaking like any other man, tired of seeing people treated like they were invisible. Of course, the backlash came, too. Some online voices mocked him. Some said he was doing it for attention. But others, thousands of others, sent messages of thanks. Some even offered to donate to the fund. In a world that often felt cold, that warmth gave Keanu hope. Days turned into weeks. Lawyers worked quietly in the background. The airline called again, this time asking to meet, but Keanu didn't rush back to their glass towers. Instead, he kept talking to people, listening to them, standing beside them. He knew change wouldn't come overnight, but each person who found the courage to speak up felt like a small win. One evening, he sat alone on his porch, the city lights twinkling far below. The pain in his leg pulsed softly, reminding him that the body keeps its scars. But he also felt a strange sense of peace because for once, the hurt had led to something good. He whispered to himself, words only the night could hear. One voice can ground a flight. Many voices can change the world. And deep down, he knew this was still not the end. Asterisk weeks turned into months. What started as a single flight turned around in the night sky had grown into something bigger than Keanu ever imagined. It was no longer just about one mistake or one bottle of medicine. It was about how people should never feel powerless when someone in a uniform says, sit down, be quiet. Accepted. Keanu stood backstage at a small conference hall in New York City. It wasn't a movie premiere or an award show. It was an event for everyday people who had come together because they believed respect should not be optional. The fund he started, People First, had already helped a few families stand up to airlines, hotels, and big companies that forgot how to treat people like people. He held the edges of his speech in his hand. He didn't like giving speeches. But this one felt different. It wasn't lines written for a character. It was his truth. The mother from the flight and her little girl sat in the front row. The girl still held Bunny by the ear, its fur now worn from being hugged so much. The old man from the flight was there, too, sitting with his arms crossed proudly. They were no longer strangers. They were proof that when you stand up for one person, you stand up for many. When his name was called, Keanu stepped onto the small stage. There was no spotlight, just warm yellow lights that made everyone feel close. He looked out at the sea of faces, some smiling, some serious, some holding onto their children's hands. He took a deep breath. "Hi," he said softly, and people leaned in. "Most of you know why we're here. A few months ago, I was just another passenger. I was tired, in pain, and I asked for help. They didn't listen. They treated me like a problem to get rid of." He paused, the memory flashing in his mind, the bottle being snatched away, the pain that burned through his leg, the flight attendant's cold eyes. He let the memory sit there for a heartbeat before letting it go. "I grounded a flight because I refused to be silent," he continued, "and you know what? I'd do it again. But this isn't about me anymore. This is about you, all of you. The mother who's afraid to speak up when her child is treated badly. The old man who is ignored because someone thinks his time doesn't matter. The kid working the jobs who can't afford a lawyer when a company takes advantage of him." His voice grew stronger, steady and calm like the night he stood in that aisle. "Respect shouldn't be a luxury. It should be the first thing we give each other. I didn't start this to be a hero. I started this because I know what it's like to feel small in a big system that doesn't care." The crowd was silent, listening, feeling every word. The mother wiped away a tear, squeezing her daughter's hand. The girl just hugged Bunny tighter. "You have the right to speak up," Keanu said. "You have the right to be heard. If someone tries to take that away, I promise you, there are people now who will stand beside you. Not just me, all of us." He held up the letters he carried from that first day, the note from the passengers, the messages from strangers. These words kept me going. They reminded me I wasn't alone. So if you ever feel alone, remember this room. Remember every hand that claps for you. You are not invisible. Someone in the back stood and began to clap, then another, and another. Soon, the hall was filled with the sound of people who understood that sometimes the smallest voice can be the loudest when it refuses to break. Afterward, Keanu stepped down from the stage, greeting people one by one. The little girl ran up to him and handed him Bunny. "He wants you to have him tonight," she said shyly. Keanu knelt down, hugging her gently. "Bunny should stay with you," he whispered. "He's your brave buddy." The mother smiled at him. "You changed more than a flight. You gave people courage." Keanu shook his head softly. "We gave each other courage." That night, as he left the hall, Keanu didn't feel like a celebrity. He felt like a man who had taken his pain, the crash, the scars, the night the medicine was thrown away, and turned it into something that could not be silenced. Back home, he sat by his window, the city glowing like a blanket of stars. His legs still ached. The pain would always be there, but now it reminded him that sometimes the things that hurt the most can teach us what really matters. Respect, kindness, and the simple power of saying, "Enough." Keanu Reeves closed his eyes, letting the quiet fill the room. He knew the fight wasn't over. There would be more stories, more people needing help, more moments when the world forgot how to listen. But as long as he could stand, with his cane, with his old wounds, with his soft but steady voice, he would stand, and somewhere in the dark, a plane flew across the sky, carrying people who deserved to be treated like they mattered. He promised himself he would never let them be forgotten again.